It is to Madame Justice that I dedicate this concerto in honor of the holiday she seems to have taken from these parts, and in recognition of the impostor that stands in her stead. Tell me, do you know what day it is, Evie?
November the 4th.
Not anymore. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. First, the overture. Yes, the strings. Listen carefully, can you hear it? Now the brass.
I can hear it.
Wait, here comes the crescendo! How beautiful is it not?
Remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Who is Guy Fawkes? What is the significance of the 5th of November 1605? And how did he and this mask come to be associated with so many modern protesters? Let's find out. Guy Fawkes was born during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. He was raised Protestant but later became a devout Catholic, angered by England's oppression of his religion. He left England to join the Spanish army, where he gained a reputation as a man highly skilled in matters of war. He asked Philip III, King of Spain, for assistance in starting a rebellion against Britain's then ruler, James I. Philip declined, but Fawkes soon found other like-minded men interested in bringing down King James. He was invited to join what would later become known as the Gunpowder Plot. Fawkes and 4 co-conspirators rented a cellar under the House of Lords. Fawkes was responsible for getting the gunpowder and igniting it on the opening day of Parliament, the 5th of November. The aim was to kill the king and as many other lords as they could. But one of the conspirators was worried that a fellow Catholic, Lord Monteagle, would get caught in the blast. So he sent an anonymous letter to Monteagle, warning him to stay away from Parliament that night. The letter was passed on to the king, who ordered the cellars underneath the House of Lords to be searched. There they found Guy Fawkes, who claimed to be a man named John Johnson, worst fake name ever. He was standing guard over 36 barrels of gunpowder. It seems crazy from a modern perspective that people could just rent cellars underneath the House of Lords. But those were happier times. So, after days of torture, Guy Fawkes gave up his real identity and the other members of the conspiracy. They were hunted down and, along with Fawkes, executed. Afterwards, James I cracked down even harder on Catholics, and Parliament declared that the 5th of November should be used to celebrate the foiling of the gunpowder plot. Today, you may know Guy Fawkes best by his mask's association with the protest group Anonymous. Artist David Lloyd drew the mask for Alan Moore's graphic novel V for Vendetta, about a masked terrorist who sought to emulate Guy Fawkes and overthrow a fascistic British government in a dystopian future. It seems like the perfect fit for a group like Anonymous, who also sees itself as standing up against oppressive forces and prefers to keep the identity of its members a mystery.
Freedom activists are taking to the streets across hundreds of cities worldwide in a peaceful protest against government corruption, mass surveillance, and attacks on privacy. Many are wearing masks to hide their faces. Let's take a look at what's happening where. Now, the largest crowd of protesters so far has gathered in Washington, D.C. Demonstrators came together near the White House, chanting slogans against government surveillance and the prosecution of whistleblowers. RT's Manila Chan was at the protest in the American capital and explains the idea behind them.
The annual Million Mask March, organized by hacktivist group Anonymous, is going on in cities across the world today. Here in Washington, the group began gathering at about 9 a.m. over at the Washington Monument with a march that ended here at the White House. Now, the group, and I use that term very loosely, is famous for hacking institutions that they deem corrupt and exposing the hidden actions of those companies. Now, the people with Anonymous are actually seeking to reform the balance of power globally. Now, just some topics that the Anonymous group is seeking to remedy, as posted to their official Facebook page, things like the NDAA, Chelsea Manning, militarization of police, even tackling education reform. From Washington, Manila Chan, RT.
Now, Washington is just one city where protesters are taking place. Here you can see those dotted lights, the sheer scale of the event. This is where some of the marches are taking place. Now, of course, Berlin is one of the places expecting a large turnout. RT's Peter Oliver is watching the crowds gather there.
What you can see behind me is the Berlin contingent of what's being called the Million Mask March, as people take to the streets across cities around the world wearing the Guy Fawkes mask of the organisation who call themselves Anonymous. The hacktivists say that they want to expose government corruption and save people from that corruption. They told me here in Berlin why they came out.
We are here to save the world because no one wants a war, a new world war in Europe.
Anonymous themselves claim to be the most influential organisation, and as these people here come out to say they want to save the world from the governments that they see as corrupt.
And in London, riot police are on alert as activists gathering in the centre. Barricades have been erected in Parliament Square. Protesters earlier voiced intentions to blockade the area. Authorities earlier expressed concern about the march. They've been trying to contact the organisers, but with no luck.
Online group Anonymous has threatened to release a list of influential public figures with ties to the Ku Klux Klan. The release of the list coincides with Guy Fawkes Day, whose face has been used to symbolically represent the group in a form of a stylized mask. Not unlike Guy Fawkes himself, Anonymous has been called dangerous, disruptive, and infamous. So what exactly do we know about Anonymous, and just how powerful are they? Well, Anonymous is an interesting phenomenon. While many media outlets refer to them as a concentrated group, they can be more accurately described as a loose movement. Anybody can join, and there is no central, singular representation of the group. There are certain themes more common to Anonymous members, such as internet activism and obviously anonymity. But there is no way to ascribe broad qualities to the group, and even know how many members there are. The problem with quantifying Anonymous is that there is no criteria for being a member. What we do know is that Anonymous began in the early 2000s on the image and messaging board 4chan. It naturally represented the internet's inherent ability to promote anonymous discussion. Within this framework, popular ideas gained more traction regardless of their origin. And without the negative consequences associated with being identified, the group became increasingly provocative and chaotic, touting anti-establishment values and a disruption of the status quo. They first gained attention in 2008 for organizing an online attack on Scientology. Although the attack consisted of mostly juvenile pranks like faxing black paper to their organization or making crank calls, the sheer number of contributors was overwhelming. The ability to collectively overpower a common target led to their most consistent tool, DDoS attacks. In a nutshell, DDoS, or distributed denial of service, is when a website receives more requests than it can handle, causing it to crash. Through this method, Anonymous has been able to take down websites belonging to any groups they disagree with. But of course, taking down a website is relatively inconsequential, so is Anonymous really all that powerful? Well, as the group has evolved, it has attracted members with an ability to do more than simply annoy or disrupt. A spin-off organization known as LulzSec has been implicated in hacking and releasing personal information, leading to considerably more real-world effects. Email accounts and passwords belonging to people connected to Sony Pictures and the US Senate were made public. Even the CIA's website was briefly shut down. This resulted in the arrests of several leading members of LulzSec. However, those tactics alongside existing internet activism have led to global events like the Arab Spring, which was only possible through coordinated and anonymous planning amongst a huge number of like-minded people. It might be misleading to ask how powerful is Anonymous, when what Anonymous really represents is the changing nature of collective action, vigilante justice, and communication fostered by the internet.
According to author J.A. Sharp in his book Remember, Remember, A Cultural History of Guy Fawkes Day, the rhyme from the beginning of this video urges us to remember a rhyme which was current by at least the early 19th century. Sharp could have never known that just 1 year after he wrote the book in 2006, the film V for Vendetta brought this rhyme to the forefront of modern culture, ultimately influencing the cultures of the internet, protest, anarchy, and civil duty. In the scholarly journal, A is for Anarchy, V is for Vendetta, Images of Guy Fawkes and the Creation of Postmodern Anarchism, author Lewis Call affirms this. He writes, although the gunpowder plot of 1605 failed at the level of conventional political action, it had a profound impact on Anglo-American political culture. In the film, The Face of Fawkes provides the basis for sophisticated representations of sexuality, mass media systems, and anarchist political action. Through its visual iconography, the film thus provides mainstream cinema audiences with an effective introduction to the symbolic vocabulary of postmodern anarchism. Ironically, Time Warner makes money each time the mask is sold, which in 2011 was over 100,000 times each year, according to the New York Times. I digress. I chose this mask and this topic because masks in modern Western culture have had less of a spiritual place than in other corners of the globe. We usually wear masks to play characters in casual, hallmark events such as Halloween. But this mask, the one in my hands, holds true weight and actually shows that pop culture and political protests have, at times, surprising interplay, says Oliver Kahn, author of the scholarly article Guy Fawkes in the 21st Century, a contribution to the political iconography of revolt. Even more interesting, as pointed out by independent UK author Tom Lee, the higher the profile of Anonymous, the more we see of the historic Guy Fawkes mask, which essentially communicates that the stronger Anonymous becomes, so does the presence of Guy Fawkes and what he was willing to do for what he believed so many years before us. According to CNBC, the mask creator David Lloyd said, "How many knew then or know now what it represents from the movie is an unknown number. But as the key motivation of V is to free people from tyranny, the mask is being used appropriately by protesters, whether they know about the story or not." To bolster this use, The Economist has deemed the Guy Fawkes mask as the face of modern protest. High praise, and even more considering that not a man, not a woman, but a mask is the face. This goes to show the power of mask without question. Finally, remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.